In a crowded courtroom in downtown Atlanta, a young black woman named Amara Lewis stood alone before a panel of cold faces. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly above her, and every whisper, every shuffled paper echoed like judgment. She wasn't supposed to be here, not like this. Not as the defendant. But life had a way of testing the strongest souls. Across from her sat Judge Harold Whitmore, a man known for his arrogance as much as his sharp mind. He leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing. "Miss Lewis," he began, voice heavy with condescension, "you're accused of fraud and falsifying credentials. You claim you're a certified translator for the United Nations? Quite an impressive lie, if true." Amara met his gaze calmly. "It's not a lie, Your Honor." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Even the prosecutor smirked. "She insists she's a linguist, Your Honor," he said, tapping his papers. "But our investigation found no record of her degree, no university verification, and no official translation certification." Amara folded her hands, her voice steady. "Because I earned them overseas, working with people you wouldn't believe if I told you." The judge chuckled, leaning forward. "So you're telling me you just happened to work for the United Nations?" "I didn't say for them," she replied. "I said with them." He raised a brow, amused. "And you speak how many languages?" Amara looked him dead in the eye. 9. The courtroom erupted in laughter. Someone in the back muttered, "Yeah, right." The judge chuckled as well, shaking his head. 9 languages, he repeated mockingly. "Miss Lewis, most people can barely handle one. Tell me, what are these 9 languages?" She spoke them, one after another. English, Spanish, French, Mandarin, Arabic, Russian, Swahili, Japanese, and German. Each word rolled off her tongue flawlessly, her accent shifting effortlessly with each transition. The room fell silent. Even the stenographer stopped typing. The judge blinked, stunned for a moment before covering it with sarcasm. "Impressive party trick. But this court doesn't run on theatrics." "Proof, Miss Lewis. Do you have proof?" Her jaw tightened. "The people I helped didn't give me certificates, Judge. They gave me trust, and lives were saved because of it." Whitmore's lips curled. "That's very poetic." "Unfortunately, we're not grading poetry." The prosecutor smirked. "Miss Lewis, did you or did you not submit a translation for the International Trade Commission using credentials traced to a false institution?" "I didn't falsify anything," she said firmly. "I was hired by your own government through an intermediary. If anyone forged something, it wasn't me." The judge raised a hand. "Enough. You'll have your chance to explain. But I'll warn, Youth's court doesn't look kindly on liars." From the gallery, a small group of journalists whispered among themselves. The case had gone viral online already. The woman who claims to speak 9 languages faces trial. Some saw her as a fraud. Others as a genius misunderstood. As the prosecution began its questioning, Amara's mind drifted. She remembered the dusty refugee camp in Syria, where she'd first learned Arabic translating for aid workers. The cold nights in Moscow, where she picked up Russian from orphans. The summers in Nairobi, where Swahili came from laughter and song. Every word she spoke had been earned through blood, sweat, and tears, not textbooks. The prosecutor paced. "You're a waitress, Miss Lewis? A waitress who suddenly turned into a translator for world agencies? How convenient." She met his eyes. "I was a waitress because people like you never look beyond what they see." That silenced him for a moment, but Whitmore cut in. "Watch your tone, Miss Lewis." "Yes, Your Honor," she said, though her defiance never faded. Outside the courthouse, crowds were beginning to gather. Some were curious. Others carried signs that said, "Let her speak." Her story had caught fire across social media, with people from around the world posting videos defending her people she had once helped translate for. But Amara didn't know that yet. When court adjourned for lunch, she sat alone on the courthouse steps. The city buzzed around her, but she was still. Her public defender, a young lawyer named Jordan Keller, joined her with 2 cups of coffee. "You know," he said, "you don't make it easy to defend you." She smiled faintly. "Would you believe me if I said I don't need defending?" Jordan sighed. "You think the truth speaks for itself?" But this courtroom isn't built on truth. It's built on who tells the better story. She looked up. Then maybe it's time I tell mine. He hesitated. You mean testify? She nodded. Let me speak. All 9 languages if I have to. That night, Amara stayed in her small apartment, the hum of the city outside mixing with her thoughts. On her table lay letters and photo children she'd helped escape war zones, families she'd translated for in hospitals, diplomats she'd guided through peace negotiations. She had never asked for recognition. But now, everything she'd done was being called a lie. She opened one old envelope. Inside was a letter from Ambassador Wei Li, written years ago in Mandarin. You have a gift, Amara, a bridge between worlds. Use it wisely. She traced the words with her finger, whispering softly in Chinese. I tried. The next morning, the courtroom was packed. Cameras flashed as Amara entered. Even the judge looked more alert than before. The air was electric with anticipation. Miss Lewis, Judge Whitmore began. You've asked to make a statement before the court? Yes, Your Honor. He gestured for her to proceed. Amara walked to the center of the room. She stood tall, her voice calm but powerful. You think I lied because I don't fit your picture of intelligence? Because I don't have a fancy degree or a famous name? But I've spoken words that saved lives. I've stood between guns and frightened children. I've seen humanity at its worst, and it's best because I could understand people when no one else could. The courtroom was silent. Then, switching to French, she said, I learned this language helping a mother reunite with her son. In Arabic, this one. From a doctor who refused to leave his patients behind. In Mandarin, this one. From a diplomat who believed peace was possible. Every language echoed through the hall like music. Each word weighted with history. Judge Whitmore's expression shifted from mockery to something else, discomfort, maybe even shame. The prosecutor sat, frozen, his jaw tight. When she finished, Amara looked directly at the judge. You can take my freedom, Your Honor, but you can't take my voice. The judge didn't respond. The gavel struck once. Court will reassess until tomorrow. As the bailiff led her away, cameras flashed wildly. Reporters shouted questions. But one thing was certain. No one was laughing anymore. And for the first time, Amara smiled. The next morning, the courthouse was overflowing. Reporters lined the steps, camera lenses glinting in the morning sun. The story of Amara Lewis, the black woman who stunned a courtroom by speaking 9 languages, had spread like wildfire overnight. News anchors called her the real-life polyglot genius, while skeptics branded her a master con artist. But Amara didn't care what they called her anymore. Today she was ready to speak the truth that no one had yet heard. Inside the courtroom buzzed with tension. Even Judge Harold Whitmore, who had once smirked at her claims, now looked uneasy. He wasn't expecting the world's eyes to turn on his courtroom. The air felt heavier, charged with curiosity and doubt. As Amara walked to her seat, whispers rippled through the gallery. That's her, someone whispered. The girl who spoke like the whole world lived inside her. Her lawyer, Jordan Keller, leaned toward her and whispered, You broke the internet last night. Half the world believes you. The other half wants proof. You ready to give them that? She looked at him calmly. I've been ready my whole life. The judge cleared his throat. Court is now in session. Miss Lewis, we will continue where we left off. The prosecution will proceed. The prosecutor, Richard Crane, stood up. His confidence had faltered since yesterday, but his arrogance hadn't. Miss Lewis, he began. You gave quite a performance yesterday, but this isn't a talent show. We're still waiting to understand how someone with no verifiable education record can claim to have worked in global diplomacy. Amara met his eyes. You think intelligence is something you can verify with paper, Mr. Crane? But language isn't learned. It's lived, he scoffed. Spare us the poetry. You're accused of submitting forged credentials. Who hired you for this so-called translation work? Amara took a deep breath. It wasn't one person. It started when I was 16. The room quieted. Even the stenographer looked up briefly. I was volunteering at a refugee center in Kenya, she continued. her voice steady but soft. There were families from Syria, Sudan, Ukraine, all trying to survive. No one could understand each other. I just started learning. One word at a time, Arabic, Swahili, Russian. The people taught me because they needed me. And soon, aid workers started asking me to help them too. The prosecutor frowned. You expect us to believe you learned 9 languages on the streets? Yes, she said simply. Because I had to. A woman in the back wiped her eyes. The prosecutor flipped through his papers. You claim to have worked with diplomats in international agencies. Where are your documents? Amara smiled faintly. Some of them were burned, some stolen. The rest, she hesitated, looking down. The rest were classified. The room murmured again. The judge banged his gavel. Order. Prosecutor smirked. Classified, of course. How convenient. And I suppose you're going to say the CIA personally called you for help. Mara didn't respond. Crane stepped closer, his tone sharp. You can drop the act, Miss Lewis. You're just another grifter, using big words and sad stories to fool people. Her eyes narrowed. You think this is an act? Do you know what it's like to interpret for soldiers in a war zone while bullets are flying overhead? To listen to a dying man whisper his final words in a language no one else understands? The prosecutor froze. The entire courtroom held its breath. Amara continued, her voice trembling with restrained emotion. I didn't learn languages to impress anyone. I learned them because no one else cared enough to listen. I became the bridge they needed. And now, you want to tear it down. The judge looked uneasy. Miss Lewis, do you have anyone who can corroborate your claims? Mara hesitated for a moment. Then, with quiet confidence, she said, yes, but you'll have to let me make a phone call. The judge hesitated. This isn't standard procedure, please, Jordan interrupted, standing. If her story's true, we can verify it in 5 minutes. Whitmore sighed. Very well. One phone call. The courtroom buzzed as Amara was led to the back office. Jordan handed her the receiver. Who are you calling? He whispered. She smiled. Someone I translated for a long time ago. She dialed. The ringback tone echoed through the room's speakers. Then a calm voice answered in Mandarin Ni Hao. Amara's eyes softened. Wei da shi sha. Wa Amara. There was a pause. Then the voice brightened. Amara Tana. It's been years. Where are you? In court, she said in Mandarin. They think I'm a liar. The man's tone hardened. Put them on speaker. The judge motioned for her to proceed. The voice continued, now switching to English. This is Ambassador Wei Li of the United Nations Peacekeeping Council. Who am I speaking to? The prosecutor's jaw dropped. Ambassador? Sir, this is Judge Harold Whitmore, Fulton County Court. Are you familiar with a woman named Amara Lewis? Familiar? Ambassador said. She saved our entire negotiation team during the 2018 Damascus summit. She translated under live fire. Without her, 30 lives including mine would have been lost. What's going on? The entire courtroom gasped. Cameras clicked furiously. The judge blinked, visibly shaken. Mr. Ambassador, this woman is being accused of falsifying credentials. There was silence on the line for a beat. Then, Judge Whitmore, I personally vouched for her credentials. If you doubt me, I can have the UN Legal Department forward her file within the hour. Amara's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. The ambassador continued, voice now stern. Amara Lewis is one of the most capable linguists I've ever met. If this court has any sense, it will apologize to her. And then the line went dead. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Jordan smiled. Well, he said, I think that's what you call proof. Judge Whitmore looked down, ashamed. Miss Lewis. I didn't know. You didn't care to know, she replied quietly. He swallowed hard, adjusting his glasses. The court will recess until final deliberation tomorrow. Amara nodded and walked out slowly, her head held high. Outside, the street was packed with reporters. Microphones crowded her face as questions fired from all directions. Amara, how does it feel to be vindicated? Do you plan to sue the court for discrimination? Are you really fluent in all 9 languages? She smiled faintly. Language isn't about words. It's about understanding people. Maybe that's what the world needs more of. As she walked away, A crowd began to applaud. That night, she sat alone again in her apartment. The city lights shimmered through the window. Her phone buzzed nonstop with messages from people all over the world, people she'd helped, people inspired by her courage. But one message stood out. From Ambassador Lee, you spoke the truth. The world finally listened. Amara smiled. Finally felt seen, not because she spoke 9 languages, but because she'd spoken her truth. The final day of the trial dawned gray and misty, the city still buzzing with the shock of what had unfolded the day before. By now, Amara Lewis's name was everywhere. News anchors debated her case. Students made tribute videos. Linguists across the world were tweeting about the woman who spoke to nations. But inside, Amara felt only calm. For the first time in years, she had nothing left to prove. The truth was finally speaking for itself. When she arrived at the courthouse that morning, cameras flashed so brightly she had to shield her eyes. Her lawyer, Jordan Keller, walked beside her, whispering, "You've already won the public. Now we just need the verdict." "I don't care about the verdict anymore," she said quietly. "I care about what comes next." Inside, the courtroom felt different, quieter, almost reverent. Even Judge Whitmore looked smaller behind his desk, humbled by the weight of his own misjudgment. The prosecutor, Richard Crane, shuffled his papers, clearly defeated. But trying not to show it, as the crowd settled, the judge spoke. "This court has reviewed the evidence and the testimony of Ambassador Wei Lee, as well as the verification of Miss Lewis's credentials from the United Nations. In light of this, we find that the charges of falsifying documents are unfounded and hereby dismissed." A collective sigh spread through the room, followed by quiet applause. Amara closed her eyes, whispering a small thank you under her breath. But then the judge continued, his tone softer. "Before we adjourn, I want to say something personal, Miss Lewis. This court, and perhaps myself most of all, owe you an apology. I laughed when you said you spoke 9 languages because I could not imagine such brilliance coming from someone like you. That was prejudice, and for that, I am deeply sorry." The room went still. Even Amara was caught off guard. The same man who had mocked her days ago was now visibly remorseful. She nodded slowly, meeting his gaze. "Thank you, Your Honor. Maybe next time you'll listen before you laugh." A few people chuckled softly at that, and for a moment, the courtroom didn't feel so cold anymore. Outside, the media swarmed again, shouting her name. "Amara, over here. How does it feel to be free? Amara, what will you do next?" She paused on the courthouse steps, looked straight into the cameras, and said, "I'll keep doing what I've always done, translate. Not just words, but hearts. Because sometimes the hardest language to understand is humanity." The clip went viral within hours. Millions watched her quiet strength and empathy in that moment. She wasn't just a courtroom sensation anymore. She was a symbol of perseverance and dignity. Days later, she received a formal invitation from the United Nations. They wanted her to head a new initiative, the Global Voices Program, a multilingual project designed to connect refugee children with translators who spoke their native tongues. Her story had inspired a movement. When she arrived at the UN headquarters in New York, staff members stood to applaud her. Some of them even tried to greet her in different languages. Amara laughed and answered each of them perfectly, switching from French to Arabic to Mandarin without missing a beat. As she walked through the glass halls overlooking the East River, she paused by a wall covered in flags from around the world. She reached out and touched one of them, the flag of Kenya, where her journey had begun. For a moment, memories flooded back, the dusty refugee camp, the little girl who had taught her her first words of Arabic, the nights she studied by candlelight, the hunger, the fear, and the fire inside her that had never gone out. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Jordan. "You did it, Amara. The whole world's talking about you." She smiled and typed back, "I didn't do it for them. I did it for the ones who still can't speak." Later that evening, she was invited to give a speech at the UN Assembly. As she stood before the podium, the flags of every nation behind her, the audience went silent. Cameras rolled. The world was listening. "When I was 16, she began, I thought languages were about words. I thought learning to speak was enough. But over the years, I've learned something deeper. Language is connection. It's empathy. It's the bridge between pain and understanding. I learned 9 languages, not because I wanted power, but because I wanted peace. Because when people stop listening to each other, humanity dies. She paused, looking around the room at hundreds of faces from different countries. We live in a world full of noise, but so few voices are truly heard. My dream is that one day, no one will be ignored because of where they come from, what they look like, or how they speak. Until then, I'll keep translating one soul at a time. The crowd erupted into applause. Reporters called it the most moving speech of the decade. But for Amara, it was just truth. That night, as she left the building, she noticed a small girl waiting near the gates with her mother. The girl shyly held up a notebook and said in a soft accent, "Miss Amara, I want to learn languages too, so I can help people like you." Amara knelt down, smiling gently. "Then you'll be even better than me one day." She took out a pen and wrote her name in the girl's notebook. Beneath it, she wrote in Arabic, "Al-Kalemt Haya, Al-Kalb. Words are the heart." As she walked away, the lights of the city shimmered on the river. And for the first time in years, she felt truly at peace. If you're watching this video, right now, tell me where in the world you're watching from, the U.S., Africa, Asia, Europe, or anywhere else, because stories like these connect us all. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. This story, if you believe that words can change the world, the woman who spoke 9 languages had finally been heard, and this time, the whole world was listening.